This is the Newsload.
Hi, my name is Carrie, and I am so excited. We're here with Newsload, and I am so excited to be able to interview Pete Johansson. Hi, Peter. How are you?
Good, Carrie. Thanks for having me. This is really fun. It just started. That's how fun it is. I can already detect the fun.
Amazing. Now, I have to open the show with your Tinder account that you put on, and I'm just going to read the opening. Things you need to know about me. First off, if we go out, you're paying, not just for me, but for my wife if she shows up, and she's a drinker. So funny. So funny. What inspired you to open this? You just felt left out?
No, it was kind of as a joke. I was in Edinburgh one summer, and my wife was doing a show, and I was doing a show at Edinburgh, and just everybody was talking about Tinder, and I didn't really know what it was. So I opened it up, and I thought, I'll just create a profile. And I just created the profile. I really didn't plan on it at all, but I took the worst pictures I could find out of my phone. I had one where I'm sick in Thailand and a doctor's looking after me, and or another one where I have oatmeal all over my face, and I look at just the least flattering photos I could possibly find. One with my shirt off where I'm clearly out of shape and look terrible. And I put them up, and then I created this profile of a guy who's, openly cheating on his wife, and I didn't think twice about it, and it just started getting messages like crazy.
It went viral. I literally saw it on meme apps. It was everywhere. It was so cool.
Well, it went viral 2 years after I made it, though, which was really weird because for the first 2 years, people were just responding to it like it was a regular Tinder app. And I got messages like crazy everywhere I went. And I was at the peak of my stand-up traveling. So I'd be going to I'd be in India, I'd be in, Australia and New Zealand. And I'd open up my Tinder, start getting matches. And it was counterintuitive to everything everybody had ever said about dating apps, and create this sort of image. Instead, I created the worst image I possibly could. And these weren't just people. I started feeling guilty because people were actually thinking I was on Tinder. I did have a few women that clearly liked me, and I was like, I'm actually married. I'm actually, this is just sort of a funny, I thought this would be fun. And then I stopped it and I shut it down a few years ago because I started thinking that it is as well known as it is. I didn't want people to sort of get their heart in it, in any sense. I know that's silly, but I didn't want to be contributing to anybody emotional pain, but it was funny. And I think the real crux point was when George Takei, he's got I think a couple million Twitter followers, and he retweeted it, and it became every 6 months it would come to the top of the Reddit page and go away. But I personally didn't get any credit for it very much for the first couple of years. Most people didn't know it was me. They just thought it was some guy out there with that profile. It wasn't until some people on Reddit, because I used one of my stand-up posters, and they go, "This is Pete Johansson." But it's a kind of life of its own. It's the context that you just read to me too. Another friend of mine started tracking people on Tinder that were in the description with their pictures, and they found something like hundreds over the periods of 2 years where people copy and pasted my description, really good, tough, pictures or whatever they're trying to do. And it doesn't really work the same unless you're kind of fully, shamelessly, the guy.
I love TikTok. It's hey, what's baby cows? Listen to some baby cows kind of thing. And people repeat the video 100 times over, and it totally loses its humor, unlike the original, because I just attempt to make it.
It's funny because I just finished 5 years at university, and I have a lot of friends that are in their 20s. And we were out at dinner one night, and I went viral. And this girl was like, "Lindsay, I've seen this 5 or 6 times with other pictures. This isn't good." I refuse to leave that. That's how it's come, but I'm not even in the equation anymore. I was not arguing, and I'm like, I guess I know because sorry, next stop.
I'm not having song on Comedy Central. How did that come out?
Oh, yeah, that was that's something I did in Edinburgh. My friend Archie here had a live show in Edinburgh where he wanted us to tell stories at a comedic side, but also a real human side. And he wanted us to transgress what we thought stand-up was, and to take bigger chances than we normally do. Just, doing a stand-up set where you have to keep them laughing consistently. He set up this challenge: stop doing anything you do in your stand-up. Do something that's bigger and harder to tackle as a narrative. And I did 2 shows for him, and I talked about, I can't remember the one, and then I did this one. And it wasn't like this where people were laughing all the way through, but it went over well. I didn't think too much of it. And it was interesting because so many stand-ups that were on the show couldn't not do stand-up. You had time for you just do 5 minutes a set. It's well, you didn't really listen to what the show was supposed to. So it made it a little hard at times to do that. And then I didn't think about it. And then 2 years later, I think this is the show for Comedy Central. I'd love you to be on it. And I was like, yeah. So I flew down and they rented out this strip club, so you're around. It's kind of neat. And did that set again. And I followed Louis Anderson, who did a set about that. As an alcoholic. So it's like this weird, up by a worse life story by a better performer. So it was really amazing to watch because I mean he had a very dramatic as well. And so he sort of that narrative. I really didn't feel like I did because then right after he was Bert Kreischer, he went on and just nonstop laughter the show. Oh man, so I felt really terrible about that performance. I keep it up that day. And again, it's another thing I just sort of forgot about. I started just getting emails, mainly nurses. I have like hundreds of emails from nurses around the world that just really related to it. And it came with people medical, people with illnesses and in situations like that with families and sort of recognition. It's just really interesting kind of feedback. It turned into one of the things I'm kind of proud about, but at the same point was really unsure of at the time. So it's like it's got a rich emotion for me because I still remember how unsure I was about performing it and everything. But at the same point, that's so counterintuitive to how I felt about it. And it's one of those rare occasions where people have sort of changed my mind on my own performance. So it
really values your performance is for them. You are there to literally dance with things. So to be able to have that feedback of positive, you are, and I feel that way about certain jokes and such. Like, some of them I've told them so many times that they can lose their luster, but the audience still loves them. So that's sort of the difference. Yeah. Well,
that's the whole idea. I guess you remember that one. It's like I'm not telling the story for my own benefit. I'm performing, and that's professional. It's
very rare that people actually tell us both stories of their parents, and then being able to cheer on the nurses and the show having, like the whole audience like cheering, yeah, nurses are awesome, and doctors are great. I'm sure they were very appreciative because let's be honest, their jobs are sometimes awful, and being able to be finally appreciated is very rare.
Yeah, having the whole passing of my mom in the observation medical environment and my dad was all the counterposed. My mom and my sister are just, and so I mentioned this is not happening, but my initial medical and healthcare workers comes from that fact that I grew up seeing their sacrificing care and concern and sort of idolizing the medical healthcare professionals, sort of those things that's inherently goodness, people choose. And I didn't overtly state it, but it's a weird evolution how we don't consciously think about things the way we begin. I like it's not my first time.
It's still even. And then you first.
Well, that's a good question.
You're like very excited to be done, and you're like, wow, this person is so cool.
I was structured to do those guys, but hire for instance, I had to meet because I had a lot of famous people in my life, and generally they don't live up to the abstraction that we create of them. They're humans, and they're full of the same flaws we all have possess. So I see that. I'm trying to think. I can't think of anybody in Montreal. I was starstruck by meeting him.
Very cool. That's interesting.
It's not exciting as it sounds because I just basically met him. And again, I want to probe. He's an older gentleman. I met him in the restaurant called Tom. Los Angeles manager introduced me to him. And the Brothers. I know these are all really old school. Generations, even though they wait for my time, just because they didn't have a blueprint for stand up back then. They just did something. They just had places to perform, and people said, "I fucking like this. What's this called?" I think there's something pretty amazing about that. Versus when I started, when there's a stand up, and everybody's trying to do something that's already blueprinted out of stand up. There were predecessors. I think in that context, the only person I'd still be like to me, but I also would like to meet Steve Martin because I finished standing in awe of him. I'm going to be disappointed that he's a but I know he's not. But because we also the greatest guy around. Okay, you can see Hawking on the day. Like everybody's not consistent. When you create these article heroes, they're consistent. They don't have good days and bad days. Like they do in their life. But yeah, I think that would be a big one. I don't really kind of. I mean, I like Carl Friston, but nobody knows who that is in here. There's some scientists I kind of like love to sit down and talk to, like philosophers and stuff. But I think stand up wise, I think Steve Martin. Yeah, there's a couple I could go back in time. I've actually talked to people at some point. I don't know. I didn't say much with him once. I didn't really get to know him, but I'd actually like to kind of know what's going on in that head because I admire his skill set. Also, I'd like to know how he approaches the world as a worldview to sort of understand where he's going. Even if I don't necessarily, because I still like to understand.
For sure. You lived in the UK for quite a while. Did you ever read that?
Well, yeah, I do comedy store every day. Like, it's like the best show. It's best club. Everything. You do 20-minute sets on the weekend. 350 people, the best comics in the country, and this vibe. And I take for granted, kind of, was there all the time. Like, it was just such a privilege for like the 9 or 8 years I was over there, just to be able to hop on the tube, do 4 shows on a weekend, and it was just an incredible experience. It was so different from doing improv in LA or Caroline's in New York, which are great clubs, and they have this sort of mystique about them, but always a great performance. They weren't always good audiences. Whereas the Comedy Store was just always kind of killer. Like, it was always a killer set. And it was also really interesting to watch famous comics from the US drop in and do sets and struggle because the British have such a distinct belief in status and the way they approach stand-up. So you'd watch really skilled comics that were sort of somewhat dependent upon their credits or presentation and notoriety to sort of carry their comedy material. But if you were introduced in London with your credits, the crowds would hate you. They want you to do good first and then hear your credits after you're done. They don't want your credits to sort of elevate the quality of what they think of you. They want to make their own opinion of you and then sort of have that revealed. So nobody gets introduced to credits in the UK at all, anywhere really. You're just introduced as the next act. and you'd prove yourself, and then oh, yeah, you can catch that guy. He's doing the O2, So over that period of time, like I watched some comics struggle, and I watched like people like Jerry Seinfeld, and like Whitehall, he's a British comic. Eddie Izzard numerous times would come down do sets, and like it's really interesting to watch really amazing comics come to this room to work on stuff and practice. And yeah, I miss that a lot. The dynamic energy to stand up in the UK that's interesting. Plus, there's no headliners like there are here. So like everybody on the show is supposed to be as good as everybody else. So if you're on last or on first, everybody's considered equal. And that was the policy of the Comedy Store. You should be able to follow anybody.
That's interesting. I didn't know.
Yeah, so it's like a comic who's paid the most, by the way. He's on the show in the UK. They're acts too. It's their job to make the show fit together. So you have some combears, guys that were just unbelievably good at what they did, like joke-wise, weaving it together, keeping the audience cohesive, and then presenting acts. And the acts would all do 20 minutes each. And so you have a break in it, so 2020 break, 2020 over. And that's how the shows are done at most of the main clubs. And, you could have Eddie Izzard go on in the first spot, and then you'd have to go on the second spot. That's your job. You got to follow them. But if you can't, then you don't belong here. Oh, yeah, great. 20 minutes is a pretty natural amount of time to do well in. Like, you can do bad in 45, and you can do bad in 10, but 20, I almost think it's almost impossible to do bad in 20 minutes, because you got something that's going to pull it together.
Well, how do you track you?
No, that's a good question. I haven't been doing stand-up the last 5 years, and because I went back to university and I did psychology, cognitive science, and I just finished that. So I'm going to spend this year probably developing a new show, and I'm hoping next year I'm going to go back to Edinburgh and present it.
But in Canada, we can follow you on your website.
Sorry. I'm on Threads is, I think, my listing. So I've got a Threads account, Pete Johansson, I think my Threads. And it's also my Instagram. I don't do TikTok, mainly because of the analysis of the software in one of my classes. And I'm not going to tell you, but I don't feel comfortable on the TikTok platform. But if something like TikTok comes up or my data is not held overseas, I'm like, that's probably it for my social media. I'm starting a Substack soon and writing a blog. And it's a podcast about learning as adults called Slow Learner, which I'm putting together with a professor of mine right now. We're going to integrate comedy in with the idea of the importance of lifelong learner, because it has a lot of health benefits, mental health benefits, and positive effects on everybody around you. So
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Pete, I can't thank you enough. I think you're amazing. I'm glad to hear your story. Just one last thing before we go. If you can say it proud. I love Newsload.
I love Newsload. Yeah, I love Newsload. Exactly.
Thank you so much, and I hope you have an amazing day.
Oh, thank you, Carrie. Really enjoyed it. I appreciate it.
Okay. Bye.
This is the Newsload.